Coming up on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, we look at the quarterback competition and where exactly they stand and how that winner has a chance to fare against Matt Corral's first year of a starter, 2019. We will talk about that. We'll also look at Jared Ivey and discuss what he brings to the defense. Is he the last piece pre-spring that needed to be gotten? We'll dive into that, and also we'll talk about the big game tonight at LSU. We have a chance to go on a little bit of a winning streak. It's big for Deshaun Ruffin, Matthew Morrell, and Jamin Brakefield, and the others to perform pretty well. But this is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I am your host, Stephen Willis. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Today we are going to talk a little bit about the quarterback competition. We are going to talk about Jared Ivey and what that means, and we are going to talk about the Ole Miss LSU game tonight. Stick around for that. But thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Do us a favor on YouTube and subscribe. Hit the bell to get notifications when we post a new video. And of course, upvote this video. Also, today's question of the day is, which quarterback, Dart or Altmyer, whoever wins the job, will that quarterback have a better first year starting than Matt Corral? Now, this is 2019 Matt Corral, not 2021 Matt Corral. So just remember, does this quarterback have a chance to get a little bit of a leg up into the next year? I think yes, because 2019 was kind of a disaster year for Matt Corral. But we'll get into that as well. So we have Jaxson Dart and Luke Altmyer getting ready to compete for the starting quarterback job. And each quarterback brings something a little bit different. We heard Tom Luganbill on the Bo Bound show refer to as Jaxson Dart as a gunslinger. He has a little bit of Brett Favre in him. He thinks he can make every single throw. Now, part of that will be coached out of him. I mean, that is just the way this works. Part of it is going to be one of the things that will make him a strength, just like it did with Matt Corral, because Matt Corral had a little bit of that in him as well. I think the comp between the two, Jaxson Dart and Matt Corral, are each other. The only difference is Jaxson Dart is 6'3", 215 pounds as a true freshman. By the time he graduates, he might be 6'4" or 6'5" and 220 pounds. You might have a Josh Allen on your hands. I'm not comparing, saying he's going to be Josh Allen, but that is the body type that he could absolutely grow into. So that is a little bit different than a Luke Altmyer, who has literally a Matt Corral type body type. He's going to be 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2". He's going to be 200, 205 pounds. That is what he's going to grow into. He's also going to be a different type quarterback. Different throws are going to be his strengths. As you saw in the Sugar Bowl, as he felt comfortable, he threw fairly well on the move. You saw him make plays on the end zone. There was a little bit of scramble ability. And that was interesting to see as well. But Matt Corral had a great career at Ole Miss. Nobody's saying he's not. Nobody is saying anything about where these quarterbacks are going to end up in relation to Matt Corral. But we are going to compare year one starting because that is relevant. If he comes in and outdoes Matt Corral in year one, which would have been 2019, that was the year that Ole Miss took Matt Corral to Birmingham for SEC Media Days and announced him as the future of the program before unceremoniously 2 months later benching him after he injured himself against Cal. Decent game against Cal, by the way. They started to kind of figure out what's going on at the end of the game, but it was a decent game. The offensive line, all those guys, everybody's talking about Matt Luke and Rich Rodriguez and everything going on with that team. And because they don't like the offensive system, or that Matt Luke was dealing with the teeth of probation, they want to say his recruiting in all aspects of his tenure was a disaster. We just went to a Sugar Bowl with his players, period. There's no doubt. We do not go to the Sugar Bowl without the recruiting of Matt Luke. Period. Don't say anything otherwise. Don't say anything to try and prove your point, because it's just false at this point. But he absolutely recruited a Sugar Bowl team. Now, that whole team is essentially gone. This is Lane's team. He has done a good job of turning over this roster. And when I talk about Lane turning over this roster, I mean that there are defenders that were recruited into a Wesley McGriff system, if you look at Momo Sodogo. Then a Mike McIntyre system when you talk about Lakia Henry. These are players that didn't fit what Ole Miss wants to do. Not only that, in 2020, they were recruiting into a DJ Durkin system, which they changed again to this 3-safety look that they ran last year so effectively. And that's why they went out and got Chance Campbell, and they found a way to make Sam Williams effective. And it's a really good system, but you want the personnel to match it. So in a year when you were able to turn over 32 players, that's nearly half of your roster, you could turn it over. And Ole Miss has put people in the transfer portal. They've processed a good many. I think we're at 17 or 18 at this point, not counting seniors and going pro. It's worth paying attention to what's going on, because they are turning over the roster. And if you turn over the roster and increase the talent profile to the level they currently are, we're talking 13 or 14 4-stars with 4 more positions or so to go post-spring. There's rumors out there of wide receivers that might want to transfer in. I don't know if they will. Not going to mention any names. Going to let the kids have their moment if they want to have their moment. But there's rumors of those kids coming in. There's, I think, a kicker needs to be brought in. A 1-year grad transfer for if Caden Costa's appeal gets denied, which in most circumstances the appeal would be denied. I didn't know that would happen is usually not a defense for something like this. So he's going to be back in November. He'll be back next year kicking. They'll just redshirt him and everything will be fine. But for this year, that is a situation that we need to handle. Now, Jaxson Dart and Luke Altmyer are going to come out and gunsling, and it is going to be a competition. We are going to talk about it most every day between now and Labor Day. At some point, we're probably going to talk about that. That will make an appearance each time for Lane Kiffin. That's just the way it is. Because when it comes down to it, it's the most important story right now for Ole Miss football. It just is. There might be less football being played. BetOnline has a way more odds and info for this playoff season, from scores, totals, and playoff performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land. BetOnline is the #1 spot for all things NFL betting in 2022. And it's not just football. BetOnline.net basketball, hockey, boxing, UFC, and odds coverage. It's the best in the business. From sports right down to your favorite Vegas casino games, BetOnline is your #1 wagering destination. So BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports and play your favorite games. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Also, YouTube. We're on YouTube. Do us a favor and hit subscribe, hit like, upvote, and of course hit the bell for notifications for when we post a new video. So that will help you out as well. So thank you very much for that. Now, we were talking in the first segment about the quarterback position. The question of the day is which quarterback between Luke Altmyer and Jaxson Dart, and there we go, who will have the better year 1 start in Corral, Dart, or Altmyer? And that goes back to 2019. Sorry about that. My dog is barking in the background and just kind of dominated for a second. So thank you for being patient there. So which one will have the better year 1 starting, Corral, Dart, or Altmyer? And that'd be the 2019 version of Matt Corral. We're not saying either one of those guys is the 2022 Matt Corral. We are going to talk about the 2019 version because that's the one that is relevant in this situation. So We told you the last couple of days that we needed to look at Jared Ivey and pay attention to there. There was a chance of we were being on commit watch and all of that happened. We've told you all of that. Remember, we are not a news breaking organization. It is not our job to break news. We don't want to break news. We just talk about what needs to be talked about to the Ole Miss fan base, and right now Jared Ivey is that guy. So if you are interested in the telephone game and all those rumors, go over to On3 Sports, the Ole Miss Spirit, and they will be able to help you out. They do a fantastic job with recruiting, and they can always keep you informed. Or you can sit here and listen to me if you want to wait about 10 minutes from the time that it's announced, because it's on free sources and open sources 10 minutes later. All of our stuff comes from open sources anyway, so I just do a decent job, I think, of aggregating it. But Jared Ivey, 6'6", 275 pounds, mountain of a man. He put on 50 pounds in his first 2 years at Georgia Tech, which good for them, and funny, we go to Atlanta to Georgia Tech, and Jared Ivey is coming to the team. So that is interesting to see. You would think at that height and that weight, he would be a Marcus Tillman type defensive end, a true strong side defensive end where he sets the edge. But he is kind of a 5 technique. He's growing into it. And that is good for what we're doing because he has the pass rush ability that you would expect of somebody that is strong and lean, somebody that was recruited at 6'6", 225. He's kept that speed a little bit. And last year he had 6 or 7 tackles for loss. Overall, a productive year for a pretty much not very good Georgia Tech team. Yeah, they stung. And they lost their best offensive player, and now they're losing probably their best defensive player. So that doesn't look good for them next year as well. But his idea, they're going to do it, is to place him in the Sam Williams position on the end. So on passing downs, he'll go back out, or he'll play nose guard, honestly. He'll either rush in or play nose guard, or depending on the personnel, because the defensive line has a chance to be extremely versatile, honestly. Between J.J. Pegues and Tywone Malone and Cedric Johnson and Katie Hill and Xavier Harris and Tavius Robinson, it has a chance to be pretty salty. This is a 3-man defensive line. Doesn't require a lot of numbers. It sounds like they have 7 or 8 at this point. And that's kind of where they want to be. I think Brandon Mack will end up playing in that down position where Sam Williams played as well. We talked about him with the linebackers earlier. The more I think about it, the more I think that he is going to slot into that one and rush the passer. And I think he has a chance to do fairly well at it. But pay attention to that. But on the defensive line, you can look all over it. You got Jared Ivey, Tavius Robinson, and we're going to say Brandon Mack on the rush in side. You got J.J. Pegues and Tywone Malone on the other side, which is also a rush in. And you can put them on different ends to beef up your line. If Tywone Malone and J.J. Pegues need to be out there together, they can play 5 eyes. They're athletic enough to do it. And at nose guard, you got Xavier Harris and Katie Hill. That's pretty good on the defensive line. Now, if you look at it with a traditional eye to where you want to play a 4-down line, and that's just in your head, 4 down, 4 down, 4 down. That's this line. This depth is not going to work. But if you go by the 3 defensive line spots, and everything's going on, you can see there's probably enough bodies for what you want to do. Also, I think somebody like Tywone Malone and J.J. Pegues, I think they might play inside some. Katie Hill did a fantastic job. He just slowly over the course of the year just made that job his. Well, now Xavier Harris is coming in and other defensive lines, and he's got to go through the battle all over again. Because remember, one of the tenets of this team is competition, to go along with fun and pro mindset. Competition. So they're always going to try to recruit over you. They're going to try to recruit you to the bench. And it's your job to compete for that job and to make it to where they can't help but play you. That is their idea for competition. That is what they want to do. But Jared Ivey, I think, fits the system fairly well. He's a bigger, taller version of Tavius Robinson, honestly. And Tavius Robinson, over the last year, he's slowly started to come on. When he first started and came from Canada, you could honestly tell. It's like, this guy has not played at this level very long. And he needs to get used to it. But by the middle of this season, which would have been middle of year 2, it's kind of on a JUCO track, he started to flash a little bit. And I think he's going to start to flash a little bit more next year. So keep an eye on him, obviously with Jared Ivey and everything going on there. But I'm going to bring up a couple of things. First of all, here's the Twitter thing announcing the transfer. Ole Miss is adding another transfer. Georgia Tech's defensive line transfer. Jared Ivey is set to transfer to the Rebels and expected to enroll today. Yes, that is what we've heard from everybody. He's enrolled in classes. Everything is good to go. So that leads me to this one. This was put out on Twitter today by Lane Kiffin. Him obviously making a joke at himself at the expense of the Tiger King. He calls it the Portal King. And it's always good to have fun at your own expense. But that is the Portal King. That's just a great, great tweet. And let's just say that I can see why he dominates Twitter. He's really good at it. He really is. So, yeah, so that's the situation. Year 1 in the quarterback room. Our question of the day. Which quarterback will have the better year 1? Matt Corral, that's 2019 Matt Corral, Jaxson Dart, or Luke Altmyer. So basically, who you think is going to win the competition, and do they have a chance to put up numbers similar to Matt Corral and how it would look going forward? So that is our question of the day. Remember, put them in the comments below or tweet us at the Stephen Willis and let us know what is going on. So this should be a lot of fun. We're going to do this every day. The question is going to change, but we want to hear what you have to say. This show is all about commentary and perspectives. It's kind of hard for me to get perspectives all the time from interviews and things like that. This is a way for me to hear from you guys. So thank you very much for that. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it is now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning? Is your Odyssey an LX or an EX? And wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry. You have the computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. So why choose to spend 30, 50, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealerships? Rock Auto is a family-owned business serving do-it-yourselfers for 20 years. Rock Auto prices are reliable low for every customer. They have everything you would need: brake parts, tall lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today and find out the solution for all your needs. Go to rockauto.com and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us stuff so that you'll know we sent you. It's an amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Remember, write Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us section so they know we sent you. All right, had a little bit of trouble with the read there. Our question of the day is, who will have the better year 1 starting, Corral, Dart, or Altmyer? Comment below or tweet at us at the Stephen Willis, and we will be able to see what's going on, and you can interact with the show a little bit that way. So Ole Miss plays LSU tonight, 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central on the SEC Network at the Pete Maravich Assembly Center. LSU's a good team. They're a ranked team. And they've kind of been a house of horrors for Ole Miss over the last couple of years. This is going to be a big game for Matthew Morrell. This is going to be a big game for Deshaun Ruffin. This is going to be a big game for Jamin Brakefield. And we'll see if any of the other freshmen get in. Because honestly, while Jarkel Joyner's out and those guys, you need to expand your depth as much as possible. They've been playing about 8 players. I'm curious to see how that changes. So the matchup predictor for this game has it at a 94.1% chance at an LSU win, 5.9% chance at an Ole Miss win, and they're predicting the score at about 75 to 63, somewhere in there. So about an 11.5 point spread. Now in this game, we will, let's see. I don't know what the line is for this game. That's what I was looking for. But LSU is 16-5. They're 4-4 in the conference, and Ole Miss is 2-6 in the conference and 11-10 overall. But they're coming off a big win over Kansas State. LSU's coming off a crushing loss to TCU. They beat Texas A&M, but before that they lost at Tennessee, at Alabama, and against Arkansas. Arkansas got them pretty good. Ole Miss is coming off the win at Kansas State. They lost to Arkansas. They beat Florida. They lost to Mississippi State. They lost to Missouri. So you have two teams that have been kind of wobbly moving forward. But the reality of this game is it doesn't necessarily matter that Ole Miss wins the game. Ole Miss needs to just kind of figure it out. The light needs to come on, and you need to take the steps to need to do that. A team that is 11-10 and 130th in the net right now or so. Can't really worry about the NCAA. They have to worry about themselves and taking the steps necessary because Jamin Breakfield's a sophomore. Matthew Morrell's a sophomore. Deshaun Ruffin is a freshman. Other freshmen are coming in. This is a chance to build a core. It doesn't matter what the record is. Don't even worry what the record is. This is the chance to build something for the future. And an example would be Coach O last year. The team had a rough start to the season. They played their way into the NIT, got to the NIT final, and this was a pretty good team by the end of the year. And it really translated over to this year. I think they're 17-4 right now. Their only losses are to ranked SEC teams in Belmont. So that is interesting there. All in all, it's a good situation for the basketball team. This is essentially a free shot. Most every game this season from this point on will be free shots. And I'll say it again. Most every game that goes on for the rest of the season will be free shots. Because you're trying to just prepare to be better. To be better version. You want it to be a team in the SEC tournament that people are just scared of. That they can get you. This is a team that's 15-15, but it's scary. That type of team. And this basketball team, they flashed. They have. You just need consistency. You need Jamin Breakfield to realize that even though he was a top 50 player coming out of high school, he was a project. He was a developmental player. And if he takes coaching and takes especially the Ansu Cisse route through college, if you're old enough to remember that, he has a chance to develop into a pretty good player as he gets older. He came to Ansu Cisse came to Ole Miss as an absolute project, and by the time he graduated, he was scoring 18 a game and was just a force, both behind the three-point line and in the lane. Jamin Breakfield needs to learn how to rebound, and he needs to defend and basically be efficient with his motion. That's what Jamin Breakfield needs to do. Deshaun Ruffin needs to make the assist the most important part of his game. He obviously needs to drive to the basket if he can get in there, but he needs to be able to recognize when that shot is an 80% chance versus when it's a 30% chance. That's what he needs to recognize in the drive. And this is something that only experience can show. Like I tell people all the time, the only way out for this basketball team is through. They have to go through all of this. Matthew Morrell is really coming on. He's taken a step in the start of SEC play. He needs to continue and form a leadership thing throughout this whole year. By next year, he needs to be the guy. Period. He needs to be the guy that everybody counts on for whatever's going on. Right now, that guy is probably Jarkel Joyner, and Matthew Morrell is probably deferred to Jarkel Joyner. But next year, he needs to be that guy. Jamin Breakfield needs to really work in the offseason. I'm telling you, he's got Ansu Cisse in him. That's what I see whenever I see him play. There's all of his movements and things like that just make sense. It just is what it is. Again, our question of the day is, who will have the better year one starting, Corral, Dart, or Altmyer? So that'd be the 2019 version of Matt Corral, not the 2021, the 2019. Leave a comment below, or you can send a tweet to @TheStephenWillis, and we'll be able to see what's going on. So we're curious about your perspectives, just like yesterday. We're going to do these questions of the day every day and give you a chance to interact with the program. Just a little thought exercise that you can take throughout the day. You might have a Wordle, and then you can just do this, and you'll be good to go. So that is what the basketball team has. Nobody's expecting great things from this basketball team. Like I said, it's a 94% chance of LSU winning. LSU has a good team. Whenever everything clicks for them, they're a handful. They're a problem. But whenever things get wobbly for them, there's a chance for you to step up and do whatever you need to do. Like Xavier Pinson is the point guard. Can he stay in front of Deshaun Ruffin? Can Deshaun Ruffin lock him down? If he gets going, LSU's kind of a problem. The leading scorer on the team is T. Eason for LSU. Matthew Morrell for Ole Miss. Nasir Brooks is the leading rebounder. Darius Days is the leading rebounder for LSU. Xavier Pinson is the leading assist guy. Austin Crawley is actually the leading assist guy at Ole Miss. So thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Do us a favor, hit subscribe. Go ahead and hit the bell so you'll know when we do another video, and then upvote the video as well. Maybe take a time to do a comment for a question of the day in the comments below or over on Twitter. Tomorrow we will probably touch on how this game turned out, this Ole Miss LSU game. We'll continue to look at where we are pre-spring. I don't know. We might get into baseball. It might be a little bit early for that. So we might even be talking about what's going on. So now make all your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. This has been the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. It's been a heck of a lot of fun. We'll tune in tomorrow and do it all over again. Thanks a bunch, and we'll see you then.